subject would be Women Transforming Healthcare, Technology, Leadership and Vision. Please help me to welcome on stage our panelists. Dr. Asma Mahmoud Fikri, Director of Government or Corporate Partnerships at Sharjah Research Technology and Innovation Park. Marion Zammit, Chief Foreign Direct Investment Officer, Malta Enterprise. Dr. Tina Mistry, Mental Health Planning Manager at NEOM. And Philippe Gerwill, Board Advisor at multiple organizations. And the panel will be moderated by Dr. Narges Sheikhansari, Executive Advisor and Public Health Expert. Please help me to welcome ladies and gentlemen on stage.
Hello. If only I had a penny for every time my name was butchered like that. We're going to give it like some minutes maybe for Dr. Tina to also join us. I believe she left the room for a quick catch-up. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So as the subject recommends, we are going to have a very cozy conversation. Here's Dr. Tina, please. We're going to have a very cozy conversation about the role of women in leadership with the very esteemed panelists that we have here today. Wonderful. So just to start with the first question and to gain further insights, I would like to start with you, Dr. You have been in leadership positions for a very long time. You have been in different sectors and different roles, and you have delivered massive impact wherever you set foot. So how was your journey into leadership like, and what was the steps that you had to take in order to reach where you are today?
Thank you, Narges, and thank you for the forum for hosting us today. I think it has been great so far, and I hope our panel adds more. I think I have been really lucky and privileged to be born in the United Arab Emirates. We're a quite young country. We just turned 50 and looking forward to the next 50. And I think in 50 years' time, what we have accomplished as women in this country is remarkable. Today, we have 9 female ministers, we have female ambassadors, we have scientists, we have women representing every sector and field. And in healthcare, there are many that I could account beside myself. I think I see myself as really small in comparison. I think what was really key in developing or allowing women, empowering them to achieve ambitions and goals through careers is first and foremost the ecosystem that supports them and enables them, starting with education, postgraduate education support, and then support throughout the establishments or organizations that they work with. I think, again, in my case, I was privileged. I am a scientist in drug discovery. I have a PhD from UCL. I am a member of the Royal Society of Biology, a fellow of the UK Higher Education Academy. I was privileged to be leading COVID-19 research in the UAE. I was advisor to the minister and undersecretary during the time, and we were working as a multidisciplinary team consisting of men and women in healthcare who were taking key decisions in the recovery and the management and the prevention of COVID-19 at the time. And I think being exposed in that sense, I mean, the whole world was exposed, the whole world became vulnerable at the time. However, we could see that men and women came together, they worked together to achieve goals that maybe were not possible otherwise. I have been supported by the government pursuing my higher education, and I think that was key. I was on a special scholarship from the Ministry of Presidential Affairs when I was pursuing my master's and PhD. And when I came back, I think the opportunity was there and the support was there, whether through men or women. In my career, and again, I think it's being lucky is maybe far from it. I think there is always ambition. If you set your eyes on something and you really work hard to get there, you will. Whether you get there faster or slower. It really depends on the ecosystem. And I think this is where I was lucky, because there was that kind of ecosystem that enabled me to reach these milestones and reach them in the right time with the right capability to be able to provide and produce the outcomes that were needed from me. So yeah, I hope I answered the question.
Oh, yes, you delivered an excellent answer to that. Thank you so much. Dr. Tina, how has been your journey so far? Has it been similar or a bit maybe different?
So I guess I'm speaking from a very different perspective. I'm just inspired. Thank you so much for sharing that, because again, I think for me, as somebody who's come from the UK into this region, I am inspired by what I'm seeing in this region, for starting, right? And you guys are paving the way for what women can do, and I see that as representation. That's super important for people like myself who are coming in new into the region, who are struggling to find their voice, find their way, and to pave our voices, our kind of what do we stand for? And actually, if it wasn't for women like yourself who are standing up in incredible positions where you guys are creating influence, it allows us to feel like actually, yeah, we've got a position here as well. So thank you so much for sharing your story. So from my perspective, it's quite simple in that I've come here because I believe in the power of our voice, the power of the female voice as well. And it's about having these types of conversations. In the previous panel, they talked about the elephant in the room. I'm a firm believer you have to address the elephant in the room. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about what the female voice is, and let's talk about how we can support female voices in these types of conversations. And it is about having allies and supporters that can bring these conversations forward. And in forums like this, it's super important. So for me, as somebody who's born and raised in the UK, of Indian heritage, having a voice actually wasn't the norm for me. So for this very experience that I've had myself, being here in the region has been a powerful experience, because sometimes we find that if we don't have representation, we don't see ourselves in others, then we don't feel we can have that. And I feel like I've had almost like the opposite effect, where I feel I am enabled, I am empowered, but it is through connection, it is through support that kind of allows this. So yeah, I feel very, very privileged and honored really to share this.
Thank you.
No, that is absolutely true. We do have two allies in our journey in the region, specifically in the UAE. One would be the nationals, just like Dr. who have pioneered in that journey for us so that we can follow. And then there would be men like Philippe, who are our allies. So before we move to the question from our ally, I would like to go to Marion and ask how was her experience throughout her journey to leadership.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on this panel. I have had the privilege of having quite an eclectic career so far to this day. I started off as a young scientist in a blue chip manufacturing company, which was predominantly male. So as a 22-year-old female in a predominantly male-dominant workforce, it wasn't easy. However, I was quite overwhelmed as a young career woman to find that my voice was given importance. And I'm speaking about 25 years ago, so that was quite a surprise to me, from university benches to be speaking to big corporates, and my voice was given importance. From then, I had moved on to pharmaceutical sales and marketing in healthcare, and that was, on the other hand, a female-dominated workforce, where being a female in that workforce felt very empowering. And now I moved on to the public service, where I have been very enabled by males and females alike throughout my career. I have participated in policy making, where my voice was given its due importance and respect, and now I'm being entrusted for the past 4 to 5 years with leading the Foreign Direct Investment Unit, in Malta's leading the Economic Development Agency. So I have always felt very privileged and lucky to be able to work across different verticals and different verticals, and where my voice has always been given its due importance.
Super, thank you. Going to the ally in the room. Philippe, you tell us, what are the unique qualities that ladies bring to leadership positions, to the boards that you advise, to the corporates that you've worked with?
So thank you very much. First of all, it's an honor for me to be here. I think starting today, I will even have a new nickname. They will call me Womanizer. So and don't start to dance on that music. Huh? So to answer your question, I think there are some cliches which are very easy. Everybody's going to talk about multitasking. But I think women are bringing much more than multitasking to the game, and we have to think really what is the difference. You know, we are talking about, I think of course we are all different, not just women and men. Everybody's an individual is different, but I still think there are some patterns that are coming for me, from my experience working also with women in management. I remember the first time I was reporting to a woman, it was a challenge for me, but it was enriching, you know, because you have a different view. I had, for example, I thought I had a great idea, you know, and I went very excited to my boss, you know, and I told her, look, we can do that and that, you know, and I was very motivated, excited, and she said, yes, why not? And then, you know, she had a different view, the opinion. So I think the key point is things like empathy, resilience. I said, and there are many more, you know, but also, for example, collaboration. I still think women are more open, you know, to collaborate, and you know, and then a lot of things about decision making. They are also looking further, more in the future, not short-term decision. You know, a man is in general want to be quick, and I don't want even to go to the discussion, you know, for the people who read, you know, can believe it or not, about Mars and Venus. You know, I took some of those books. And I read it, and my wife read it, and I told her, are you really like that? And she said, yes. You know, so sometimes, you know, if a woman tells you something, as a man, you want to give a solution. You know, we are quick, we want to give a solution. The women sometimes just want to talk and to have somebody listening to them. So I said, I could talk for hours, you know, there are many things like that. So there are many differences. But that is what is nice. That is what is bringing to the table. I don't want a woman that is acting like a man. And I have seen that too much. But also I have excuse for that, because there was a time, and it's still not completely over, but women didn't have another choice to make a career. They had to act like a man, and that's completely wrong.
That's very true. Sometimes, in order to fit, we might choose to behave in certain ways, but that very much shows us that there are existing barriers that we are trying to get around one way or the other, depending on the coping mechanism that we might be finding. Dr. Tina, what do you think those barriers are, especially as someone who's worked in the wellness space? You must have encountered, you know, policies or ongoing challenges to incorporate wellness into a corporate organization or a corporate setting, and there must have been some barriers in placing those policies for the right benefit of the employees. So what do you think were the barriers of bringing those benefits, and how has it affected the general wellness within the corporate?
And I guess what you're wondering is about how it impacts women. Is that where you want to extend it to, or in general?
That is to start with. Of course, we understand that there are barriers. What are those, and how is it affecting women, but also the overall well-being within the corporate? Because if let's say half of the employees are not happy, then that is a very unhappy organization.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is a global challenge, isn't it? When we're thinking about, you know, the workplace is essentially what we still got is this archaic idea that workplace is where we are productive, where we produce things and things are being churned out at an efficient rate. You know, we've got this factory mindset, you know, and I think that that's where we have to loosen the narrative around actually there is a human behind this production. There's a human behind everything that we are trying to do. And you know, ultimately the human is complex, the human is diverse, the human human has differing needs depending on where they are in terms of their development, whether they are male or female. So it's very, very complex, this challenge around how do we integrate wellness into the space of the workplace, because it requires us to look at nuance and intersectionality, which are, again, terms that probably within the workspace we're not so familiar with. And it's really about opening up conversation, dialogue, listening to the people who are, on the ground, the employees, and then trying to co-create something. So from a business perspective, how do we meet the needs of our employees without, losing ultimately what our main business goals are? How do we ensure that? And I'm sure you guys have all seen the stats and the literature and the evidence base around the incorporation of well-being at the heart of businesses, that the data is clear, the evidence is clear that if you invest in the human beings, the people at the center of your workforce, then you're going to have better outcomes and better effectiveness because you've got productivity and all of this stuff. But it's never that simple because, unfortunately, it's not a simple answer and a simple output. So it's challenging, but I think that we still need to keep talking. We still need to be collaborating and getting data. I think that's the crucial part here, that if we show hard evidence within our workspaces, then that will help us open up the narrative. But I'd say it's not easy because ultimately businesses want to be effective and producing things fast and quick, and yesterday. So it's never an easy quick fix, unfortunately.
That's absolutely true. There's much work to be done. But then perhaps there's something that the world can learn from successful ecosystems like the UAE. Dr. You mentioned that the ecosystem was very much instrumental in how you went through your journey in leadership. Maybe there a lesson or two that you can share from that ecosystem that the world and the larger, global landscape can learn from UAE in how to empower women and how to provide for the right ecosystem to let them carry the journey forward within the leadership.
I think if we put that in the context of performance management, and if you apply a system that is based on merit, then applying meritocracy would iron out any gender-based biases. And so that would allow individuals who are unique and their talents and their experiences and their expertise to shine out and come across and move further. And I think that is the ecosystem that is being applied in the UAE. I think we advanced based on our merit, our contributions that are acknowledged, that are then furthered and supported and empowered. And this is one way of achieving that. I think the other is trying to shed the light on women's achievements across, whether throughout history or across the modern times. If we look at, I'm going back again to COVID-19, the mRNA vaccine was discovered by women. They won a Nobel Prize for it. And I think we need to celebrate those examples on a daily basis. We need to see more coverage in the media. We need to see that reflected in daily lives. We need to be celebrating those icons in on our dining tables with our kids, because I think change and empowerment starts with the girls at home, with the girls at school, with girls and boys being at tables discussing good people, powerful icons or talents, whether men or women equally. And by that, we create a new consensus, a new generation that doesn't fall for the, if we call it the mass biases towards women that we might have seen in some areas or the other. I think maybe these two could be two lessons that we could take forward. And that was certainly the kind of conversation I was having with my parents and my family and my siblings at home. And alhamdulillah, today we have become quite successful. We were empowered and enabled, and we never felt that there is a difference between me and my male siblings. So I guess, starting from home and then building towards a work ecosystem, education ecosystem that supports that. It's all about the dialogue at the end of the day. Whether you're having an open one, it's not even empowered, a balanced one that is based on acknowledging individuals for their contributions, then I think, any conversation could be resolved.
Absolutely. Marion, how about you? What have been the enablers for you, or maybe the ones that you wish you had throughout your journey?
So when it comes to enablers, I have been very lucky to be born in a country which always believed in, in education of both genders, empowerment of both genders. Even if we look at Malta today, there are female politicians, female ambassadors, female in key positions in the public sector and in the private sector. However, even if I look back at what we have been saying here and about barriers, there must still be some barriers and some issues that we are missing. For instance, if I look at Malta, 60% of the student population in university is actually female. But if we look at STEM subjects, so the technical subjects, that percentage falls to 19%. Last week, I was attending a seminar on legislation and regulation of the digital innovation sector within the EU, a very technical subject. And the amount of females in the room could amount to maybe 5 to 10%, and I was shocked. Because, I mean, it's a legal thing, it's technical, and AI is in everything, and it's everywhere. So there was definitely a place for more female representation. So what is stopping women from taking up these subjects and to work in these sectors? I think there must be something missing there that we're not seeing. Is it the amount of hours that we have to invest in those sectors? Is it because those sectors demand characteristics that we miss in our personality traits? Is it because they're not appealing for us? Whilst, for instance, if you look at healthcare, then you will find that in Europe, over 70% of the workforce is female. So I think there we need to study a bit more what is keeping women. And today we are discussing medical technology. Even when I speak to startup founders, I find that there are more male founders than females. So that is something which makes me very curious as to what is keeping us back in spite of having an enabling ecosystem which is allowing us to study and allowing us to work.
Absolutely. And then there seems to be this key element who are our male counterparts who can play a role in this. So what do you think, Philippe, our male counterparts can do to ease this journey for us, or perhaps to support us in going up the ladder?
Maybe even before answering directly that, I think we need, and I said it a few times, we are always talking more about solutions than completely different approach. And for years, we continue to talk solutions, small iteration, we change it, but we are not completely challenging the way we address those things. And for example, one of my points is, and I'm sorry to say that, I'm a father and all that, but I take the risk if I ask in the room all the people who had the biggest impact on them, was it the mother or the father? So on a private level, in the family, the impact, I'm very proud of my kids, but it's not because of me, it's because of my wife. She did the whole education and everything. And I think when we come to work, it's a different world. So why is it a different world? Why we don't count on the women to do the same at work, to bring what they do? They have a huge impact in the family. Why should they not have a huge impact at work? And again, for me, we still have this approach, there is work and there's the private life. And we know that today this line is becoming thinner. Even we talk about remote work and all that. So there should not be any more such a clear separation. And people forget when they pass the door of the corporation, they forgot what they do at home. Being it on spending money, whatever, you would spend the money maybe differently at home than at work. But which one is right and which one is wrong? So I think we have to bring that together, And what the women, they do an amazing job in the family in terms, of taking care of the kids, of the parents, of everything. So they have a huge role. So that role, if you can bring that to a corporate environment, I think that's what we are missing today. It's what I said before, we ask a woman to be like a man in the corporation. Now they should be like a woman. and there's much more to gain from the cooperation, as I think in that point. So if you ask me what is the role of the man, is to acknowledge that and to support that and encourage that, not ask them to be different.
Absolutely, very well said. Dr. How do you foresee the future of women in leadership? What do you think the trends would be? How do you think, let's say, in 10, 15 years, the world would be any different from today in terms of women in leadership positions?
I think the world is already changing, and the change is taking I think it's millennia. So if you look back at history, you see that there are waves of change that are coming. But I think today, with access to the internet, we have connectivity that wasn't there before. We have social media that wasn't there before, and we have voices that have platforms and are heard. And that kind of tool was not available before. So definitely there would be changes. I think competition is going to change in a sense that the rivalry is going to again be based on merit. So whether you have fine-tuned your skills to be more competitive, to be able to be in a market and compete, that wouldn't be based on your gender. I think it would just be based on how much work and effort you put into yourself, what kind of education that you have pursued. I think maybe 100 years ago, getting a PhD was something that is far-fetched. It's a privilege that was really limited to a very small group of people. Today, I think there is accessibility to talents and smart people to have access to scholarships to be able to pursue that. And I think in the tomorrow, a PhD level degree, the kind of skill set that comes with that would be expected maybe from bachelor degrees. We're talking about AI-enabled systems. We're talking about a new world that's going to be there that would require new skill sets and new ways of looking at things. I think we will need to adopt multidisciplinary thinking. We need to learn how to critically think and assess. And maybe going through the wave of disinformation that we're going through today and having to push ourselves to learn how to distinguish between right and wrong, that's going to push us to be that kind of person in the future. So I don't think, and I hope so, in the next 100 years that the generations to follow in the future, I hope they won't have a question of whether females were empowered or not. I think the question would be, are we working towards a sustainable earth? Are we working towards getting equity to everyone? Are we working towards making healthcare accessible to everyone? Are we empowering people who could be making changes and strides and discoveries that would ultimately end the pain and end diseases like cancer, HIV, and so forth? So I think the whole dialogue would be changed and it would be different than what it is today.
That is a very bright future to look forward to. What do you think, Marion? Do you think anything would be at all different in a positive or negative way? Any drastic changes that you foresee come to this?
I do think that things are evolving. And as we go along, we are becoming more individuals rather than gendered. So it's becoming a bit more universal, so to speak. And I think that is the key thing. In being women, I think we are judged more, and therefore we fear that judgment. And that a female leader we feel that we are being judged on physical appearance, on whether we are childbearing or child-free, on whether we have invested in our career or invested in bearing children and nurturing them. Whilst I feel that males are less judged on that. I think we as women need to let go of that judgment. Let us be judged. Let us not care about the judgment. Let us just go forth and just care about our careers, about whatever path we decide that we want to go forth with. And I think in the future we're going to see more of that, and I think the world will be empowering for us to do that.
Super. That's another future I look forward to. Dr. Tina, how about you? What are your predictions for the future?
Yeah, I think I'd agree to, so far what we've shared, that there is clearly hope, and I am a hopeful person, I would say. I think there are challenges still that we need to address. in terms of, how we are being judged and that whole piece, because I don't think it comes without any limitations, like what are the consequences of having moving more towards the individualism aspect. And it made me think a little bit about is that actually necessarily the right thing to do? Should we be thinking about more balance? And ultimately, especially within this region, we are essentially a collectivist culture, and what does that mean for women and women in the workplace? So there's lots of I think there's a lot more conversation that needs to be had about holding on to values and integrity and what actually matters to us as a society, but also then what does that and how does that implicate on the workplace and our future careers? So I wouldn't say it's as straightforward as an easy direction. I think there's going to be bumps along the way, a little bit more conversation, a little bit more about how do we use technology to enable us as well as women in the workplace. But again, ultimately, it's about sharing these conversations together and making essentially us feel safe enough to address these challenges that we have, and doing it in a thoughtful but nuanced way. Like I said, we all come from different spaces. We all come from different cultures where things are handled and dealt with delicately and sensitively. And we have to remind ourselves that it's never just one size fits all.
Super. Thank you for that. In the interest of time, the last word goes to you, Philippe. Tell us something that stays with us.
Yeah, okay. So I have a last word, a simple one, but I would still quickly jump on what you said. First of all, I heard these things about judging, So who are we to judge? And the second thing is also another side. We also quite often ask the question, what do the other people think about me? If you really think about it, most of them don't care. They think about themselves. They don't think about you. And we put so much importance about what do they think about me. They don't care. So my conclusion is not that. My conclusion is, and I try to keep it simple, it's not about giving a seat at the table to the women. It's about redesigning the table. That's my last word.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the audience, and thank you to the esteemed panelists. I sincerely enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you've enjoyed it the same. Thank you.